The year is 1999, and a man named Saba has begun creating the internal levels with Balazs Rozar's own level editor for the motorbike game Elastomania. Did Saba know that when he made these levels, they would be mastered and rethought for the next 10 years and beyond? This is where the competition all began. You are watching the first 100 Moposite record tables for the internal levels. A handful of Kazkis were about to earn the title of the first internalists, as they were the ones dominating the early Elmer scene. Payan, Dizzy, Carlis, Yoke, Yeppe, Zintifox, Elg, Zeth and Simorph were all some of the greatest hailers of this time. But the two players who would begin the Internal Mania and set an example for future masters were Champion and King Kong. The two had records on every table to the 72nd. You are watching some early Elmer improvements. During the first years of the game's existence, improvements were very common as the most efficient styles hadn't yet been conceived. However, the improvements may also have been because the predecessor Action Supercross had been played since 1998 and many of the new internal levels were similar to the older cross ones. Olinari's Enigma record is the biggest improvement of all time, and his reaction to the world record was probably something most Kazkis would have felt. In his own words, Olinari said,
"I was shivering and my hands were sweating."
During these times, Olinari described the scene as chaotic. Quote,
"Hundreds of skillful players adapting to the new bike."
End quote. The turnover from Action Supercross to Elastomania would take a little time, and not until the transition was complete would solid world records start being set. King Kong and Champion are in most Kazkis' eyes the first internal Elmer Kings, as they had many world records, and as you can see here, they were the first to break the first 3-minute limits, 45, 44 and 43. Although breaking a minute limit back then might not seem as difficult as it would be today, keep in mind that there were many Kazkis competing in the internal scene, so to be the first one to do it was an enormous achievement. As previously mentioned, big improvements were not very surprising back in these days. It was more of a question of who rather than what. The third biggest Elmer improvement ever was driven by El Bono. He used this style. Zintifox was a very special Kazki. He's been sending in world records to Moposite from table number 4 to number 275. Most internalists have a period where they are very active and then seem to lose interest and quit, but not Zintifox. His explanation is, quote, Zintifox.
"Spontaneous comebacks of different sorts with a battle victory. Some world records and a World Cup or two."
End quote. He also broke the 42-minute limit, as you can see. Yet another two improvements in the top 10 biggest ever. IRK was the first one to officially manage one round in Apple Harvest. Payan was at this time a little like Zinterfox. They were both quite equal in the statistics, but Payan, unlike Zinterfox, had not had any spontaneous comebacks since he left. Now this table is special because it marks the end of something. The first super internalists have no world records anymore and will not get a single new one as far as we know at this point. Many new revolutionary internalists will however come, and their achievements and domination will be just as remarkable at the least. The internal mania had barely begun. A Kasky whose coming achievements will bring a new perspective on the internal madness and completely dominate the scene during his years of competing is Torringe. Here is his first world record. Perhaps one of the more notable minute limit breaks up to this point was Dizzy's 40-minute break. It was a very exciting thing to break that for. Even though it only differs a minute from 41, it showed important progress. Dizzy was also one of the more mentionable Kuskis, as he's had many records up to this point. Take a look at these internal record tables to understand Torringe's domination from the minute he stepped onto the table. Very few Kaskis offered competition to such madness. Although there was one Kasky who could measure up to Torringe's power campaigning, Zweg. Another Kasky who began to have huge effects on the internal scene was Zweg. Zweg kept the flame lit under Torringe's campaign, burning and boosting the effect of it considerably as he provided a much needed rivalry that encouraged Torringe to realise his oiling prowess. The monster battle between Zweg and Torringe was something the scene had never seen before. Zweg describes the experience from his point of view. Quote, Zweg.
Torringe just raped us when he felt like it. I managed to give good competition to Torringe in 2003 and 2004 when I played a lot, but in 2005 when I played very little, it was just depressing to lose every world record he made in the next table. Like when I made quick round 36:48, I thought it was a pretty decent time. Tor beat it in the next table.
End quote. With his amazing world records progression, it was not a big surprise that Torringe was the first to beat the 39-minute total time limit. Around this time, it began to take about a year for each minute limit to be beaten, making it a bigger event within the community. New styles continued to be thought of, and one from this time is Mr.'s Quick Round in the top left corner. Another trend that began to take speed at this period was to make the world records last. Mr.'s The Steps record lasted for 100 tables, and Zweg's Bumpy Journey record lasted for 109 tables. There are many other popular styles from mostly 2003. Note that the driver being credited for the style is the person who first finished the style as a world record. This style was accidentally spread by Juzam on a popular Elmer chat channel, #across, where Juzam followed by typing the text.
Please don't download.
In an interview undertaken by Zweg, He commented on this style and said that he thinks this is one of the best styles he has ever found. This style was first finished by a Kuski named Darmode, though he used a cheat program called Save Load, where he could save a run in the middle of the level and continue it from there. Marku is being credited for the style because he had the second best result with this style at the time. We are not sure who should be credited for this style, though after some investigation, we decided to give Dead Knight the credit for it. This style was originally born in Action Supercross, just like the Enigma style. Many ways to get over the pole faster have been invented by different Kaskis. The monster battle between Sweg and Toringe did not simply end, and it wasn't easy to decide who would be crowned king. The scene loved it because it led to amazing world records and drama. If one seemed to win the battle, the other moved in with an amazing time, steaming things up. The two Kaskis were equally dominating, but they differed very much from each other in their specialities. Sweg invented many styles these days, but Toringe simply drove amazingly fast world records. John is a Kaski whose achievements aren't set to glow until after Toringe and Sweg's shining has ceased. Nevertheless, his moves and tricks were remarkable. This was his first world record. In a surprisingly short time after Toringe's minute limit break, Sweg breaks it again. At this point, the minute breaks were getting increasingly harder to beat. These replays are mentioned because they are in the top 5 of the world records of ages. In other words, they are the records which have lasted the longest. Stinny's Enigma record was set on table 175 and stands today at table 310, for a current total of 135 tables, the most in history. His replay caused great debates on whether it was a legal run or not, due to the ferocity of the bounce, possibly due to an error colloquially known as a bug bounce.